The Morning Show with Mr. G and Paul Stone. The talk of the Treasure Coast. 1590 WPSL.
You better believe it, 8:11 now, and we've got a special guest in studio today, Paul.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Paul Stone. This morning, our guest on Monday Conversation is WYDEE'A Wilson, the Chief Probation Officer, 19th Circuit Probation and Community Intervention. Good morning, WYDEE'A.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I am wonderful.
Lovely Monday morning.
I tell you, that's a long title.
Yeah, you have a huge business card.
Yes.
So tell us, what is a civil citation?
Yes. So a civil citation is an alternative to arrest for law enforcement. So anytime that law enforcement comes into contact with a juvenile who has committed a misdemeanor, just a small misbehavior incident, for example, like shoplifting, instead of giving that juvenile, actually arresting that juvenile, they can offer them a civil citation. And so it is just another tool belt that law enforcement has that keeps the juvenile from actually being arrested and actually having a criminal record.
So it gives them another chance, basically.
Yes, it keeps them out of the juvenile justice
What determines whether they offer it or not?
It is law enforcement discretion.
Oh.
So if, for example, if they go out to Walmart and a juvenile is caught shoplifting, one, the victim, who is Walmart in this case, would have to agree. And the juvenile and their parent would also have to agree. And a lot of times, too, it's based on the kid's attitude. So we try to teach our youth in the community to always be respectful to law enforcement.
Give us an idea of, for example, how many civil citations you might see in a month's time around here.
Yes, so I'm glad you asked. So on our DJJ website, this is www.djj.state.fl.us, or you just Google Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. We have what's called a civil citation dashboard where anybody can go on the website and take a look at how is St. Lucie County doing in reference to civil citations? How is how is the state doing? How are different areas within the state? So in St. Lucie County, what we do is we have a rolling dashboard for a year. So from August 2015 to July 2016, we are at, in St. Lucie County, a 49% civil citation utilization rate. So we're able to tell on a monthly basis. For example, July of this year, we had a total of 9 kids who were arrested who were eligible. To be eligible means that it has to be a misdemeanor, has to be a first-time misdemeanor, and that means that they have no other arrests, and they are eligible. Then we had 4 youth who were not given a civil citation, 5 youth who were. So that placed us at a 56% utilization for that month. So DJJ keeps a record of how we're doing because we have to report back to the legislators on how this civil citation is working. So this is a statewide initiative that we want all of our kids to have an opportunity at.
Well, once a juvenile is cited with a civil citation, what happens to him? In other words, is there a course he has to look at or follow through or a study of some sort?
Yes. So when a juvenile is given a civil citation, they are referred to what we call an operating entity. That is a program. For example, here in St. Lucie County, it may be court administration. They will meet with court administration or the civil citation operating entity, and they will have an assessment done. See, one of the great things about civil citation is that the accountability, and it's done swiftly. So it's important to get that kid in for that assessment as soon as possible. When you have the assessment, you determine what does this kid need? What are the issues? What's going on? Are there drug problems? Are there problems within the family? Do they need counseling? And then they are given sanctions to complete.
Okay.
Sanctions may be community service hours. It may be write a letter of apology. So once their sanctions could also be counseling. So they are given sanctions to complete, and they are given a time frame in which they are to complete those sanctions.
How long have you been doing this?
With DJJ? So I've been with the Department of Juvenile Justice for 17 years. I started out as a probation officer, where I had a caseload of juveniles that I would oversee, making sure that they completed their court-ordered sanctions.
Well, tell us basically what the future holds for these kids. In other words, once they have the civil citation in there, they go through the steps to improve. Do you see most of them going in the straight and narrow, or do you see some that are repeating again?
Well, the good thing about civil citation is that it has a very low recidivism rate.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Which means that most of the kids who come into the system that are first-time misdemeanors and they participate in civil citation, they have a greater chance of not coming back into the system. So that's one of the advantages. And we want to make sure that they don't have an arrest record. We want to make sure that there's something that's not out there that's going to keep them from going to a college. There are some colleges that you go to, and they will ask, do you have a juvenile record?
Yeah.
And if you have a record, they won't accept you. We want to make sure that they will be able to become productive citizens, and nothing is out there that's keeping them from getting a job. And so most of the kids will not come back into the system if we go ahead and ensure that they are held accountable and that it's done quickly.
We've been talking with WYDEE'A Wilson, the Chief Probation Officer of the 19th Circuit Probation and Community Intervention. What would you like to close with this morning?
Well, I like to close with that I want parents to, and the community, to be aware of the civil citation opportunity that's out there. I'd also like to come back and inform parents about the juvenile justice system, about other reform efforts and initiatives that's happening within DJJ on how we can prevent youth from coming into the system. And if they actually happen to come in there, how can we better intervene to be able to make sure that our kids are productive citizens?
Well, thank you so much for coming on this morning. An excellent program. We certainly hope that people take advantage of this and get on the straight and narrow. Thank you, WYDEE'A.
Thank you.
Good morning. It's 8:20 now, 68 degrees on this Monday morning. Time for the news from 1590 WPSL. Well, now that the Florida voters have overwhelmingly approved legalizing marijuana for medications, experts in healthcare and law enforcement speculate that the measure will be a blessing or a curse. Yeah, the answers largely depend upon who you ask. The state constitution amendment, which takes effect January the 3rd, was passed with more than 71% of the vote. It broadens access to medical pot beyond the limited therapeutic uses approved by the legislature 2 years ago. It guarantees the right of patients with certain debilitating illnesses to the right to use cannabis, but the amendment, which will take months to implement before the estimated 450,000 people who qualify for the drug will have access to it, will not allow anyone to possess leafy form of marijuana used for smoking that is permitted in some states. The only cannabis products allowed will be in capsules or oils that can be used in a vaporizing device. There's no loose weed that you're rolling into a joint, said the Stewart family physician, Lisa Rankin, with Coastal Integrative Medicine, who in September underwent state approval training to prescribe medical pot. The Fort Pierce City Commission on Monday unanimously approved a building plan and rezoning request for a precast concrete manufacturing company that wants to create 150 new jobs here. Precast specialists of Pompano Beach would build a 76,000 square foot building on 75 acres of a former citrus grove at 3798 Selvitz Road, just west of Fort Pierce Central High School. All jobs will be full-time, average pay $34,000 a year, that is. City officials said construction is expected to start the first quarter of 2017 and last up to 120 days, company president and chief executive officer Dean Locke said. A family was displaced Saturday afternoon after a fire broke out in their Port St. Lucie home, according to Mark Cristaldi, the captain for the St. Lucie County Fire District. Fire crews receiving emergency called about 6:30 p.m. from a fire from a single-story family home at 500 block of Southwest Banks Terrace. The family was in the process of moving into the home on Saturday, but were not home when the fire broke out. The fire was extinguished in less than 10 minutes, but caused extensive damage to the home and displaced the family. No injuries are reported, and the family did decline help from the Red Cross South Florida region to find a place to stay. Experts say today's supermoon will be the biggest full moon observers have seen in nearly 70 years. Full moon can come with superstitions, which Cleveland Clinic Dr. Scott Bia says are born out of our desire to control things that are generally out of our control. And regular domestic bed bugs are bad enough. The pesky, persistent pests have exploded across the country in the past 15 years, and now the tropical bed bugs are back. A researcher at the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agriculture announced the discovery of a tropical bed bug, the first in 60 years. The single bug was found in Brevard County. Experts say it's probably just a matter of time before tropical bed bugs start showing up elsewhere. And St. Lucie County wants to redevelop a 20-acre Harbor Point Park in the northern section of Fort Pierce into a mega yacht refurbishing center or other commercial marine use to capitalize on the shortage of such facilities in South Florida, officials said Thursday at a meeting between Fort Pierce City Commission and the St. Lucie County Commission. You can overcome the lack of size of the parcel by using some of the advantages, mainly the congestion that you see in South Florida, you don't see here, said Stanley Payne, the senior county economic advisor. And those are stories making news this hour. Your traffic is coming right up. Checking that traffic right now. We're all clear accident-wise. We do have a prescribed burn, however. That'll be taking place State Road 91 southbound near mile marker 163.
News, traffic, sports, and morning show funnies. The talk of the Treasure Coast. 1590 WPSL.
Well, David Chappelle made his return to TV this week on Saturday Night Live.
And I don't even think it's the most important thing we're dealing with, man. Don't forget all the things that are going on. Shootings. What do you think about that? All these shootings in the last year. The worst mass shootings in the history of the United States. Pulse nightclub, which they said ISIS did. And then it turned out that wasn't exactly what happened. And if that is what happened, then ISIS is scarier than I thought, because they have very deep cover operatives. Look, guys, we're going down deep for this one. I might have to get a Grindr account and a few guys off and throw them off the trail. I don't think the guy was in ISIS. What happened was he pledged allegiance to ISIS before he did what he did, which is not the same as being an ISIS, you know what I mean? Like, I was gonna have sex with a girl, and right before I did it, I screamed out, Wu-Tang. That don't mean I'm in the Wu-Tang Clan. We're just shouting Wu-Tang out. Some more shootings than I can literally count. You can't even go to the goddamn zoo without seeing a shooting nowadays. They shot a gorilla in my local zoo. And the Cincinnati police said shooting that gorilla was the toughest decision this department ever had to make. I said, well, you about to see a lot of in gorilla costumes in Cincinnati.
News.
And those are the stories making national headlines this hour. Let's have a look now at the precious metals market. Gold is at $12,2600. That's down 0.27%. Silver's down 0.78%, coming in at $17.36. The precious metals markets have been brought to you by St. Lucie Jewelry and Coins, trading in gold and silver bullion and all U.S. coins since 1994.
And now from Studio 3BA, let's talk sports with Paul Stone.
Okay, G, let's talk some Florida sports, and the struggles continue in Jacksonville. Kareem Jackson picks off a Blake Bortles pass for a touchdown, an early 7-zip lead. It was the 9th pick and 6 given up by Bortles in his career. That was Mark Vandermeer with the call on the Texas radio network. Bortles' ninth pick six of his career, and a fumble continued to Jacksonville's fourth straight loss, 24-21 to the Texans. The Jags are now 2-7 and in last place in AFC South.
Jaguars.
Yeah. Adam Gase says he credits the defense for coming up with big plays against the Chargers quarterback Phillip Rivers. Miami had 4 interceptions in the fourth quarter. Wow.
Wait. Excuse me for a second, Paul.
Oh, sure.
Just a few more seconds, Paul. We'll let you get back to that 1 second.
Sure.
Because we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins #1. Yeah, I'm going to write them a new song.
Yeah,
though.
I think you do, Jerce.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, second-year defensive back Tony Lippert had 2 of Rivers' 4 interceptions. Miami is now 5-4. And just tied the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, man, we're in second place, baby.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, there was a third pick six in Tampa Bay's game with Chicago. Chris Conte returned Jay Cutler pass with 20 yards for a touchdown to give Tampa Bay an early lead, and the Bucs went on to crush the Bears 36-10, costing me a point in my Pick'em League for their first home win of the season. Jameis Winston threw for 312 yards, a pair of TDs for the Bucs. And that was Bucs head coach Dirk Cutter. The Bucs are now 4-5, tied for second with New Orleans in the NFC South. And there was a fantastic finish in NBA last night, G. That was Dennis Newman in the Magic Radio Network in his first game against his former team. Serge Ibaka knocked down a game-winning shot with 0.4 seconds left. You know, in basketball, G, they go through more .10s and .3s, and my goodness.
Boy, that's how I'm telling you, for basketball, it's just never a dull moment, I got to tell you.
Yeah, the Big O Magic, they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 119-117 Sunday night. Ibaka finished with a team-high 31 points and 9 rebounds as the Magic snapped a 3-game losing streak, which included a Minnesota Timberwolves loss. Russell Westbrook led the OKC with 41 points, 16 assists, and 12 rebounds. In college hoops, Justin Leon scored a career-high 17 points as Florida defeated Mercer 76-54 in Jacksonville. FSU moved up 3 spots to number 17, the latest AP football poll. Florida's ranked 21st this week. There's a shakeup in the poll with Alabama, Ohio State, Louisville, and Michigan, and Clemson now making the top 5. And Washington ranked 4th last week. They dropped to number 7.
Can you imagine that? The 4 of the top, what was it? 3 of the top 4
yeah. lost to unranked teams.
Come on now. Wow.
Right. Anyway, we bet on sports. You got to be just a lunatic.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, G, you got the sports.
All right, man.
Joey Logano comes to Phoenix, wanting to make sure he gets to the championship 4. He does it with a win. Coming out of 4, Logano wins at Phoenix.
Man, this feels so good. I never felt this good about a win before. So much on the line, and everyone brings their A game when it comes to winning championships, and his team did it. So, man, it feels so good. Had a good restart there at the end, and holding off Kyle to try to get this thing into Miami. So we're racing for a championship now. We did exactly what we had to do. We got to go to Homestead and do the same thing. So could be more proud of this team. Valley State's engines bringing the heat again. Ford, AutoZone, Auto Trader, Coca-Cola, Wheels Up, SKF, everybody that helps us out. AutoZone and Auto Trader. It's man, I'm speechless right now. I feel like I just won the Daytona 500 again.
That's Joey Logano won the Can-Am 500 in Phoenix yesterday and clinched the spot in the championship race next week. Kyle Busch came in second and grabbed the other spot. But here's the story here. The Cowboys, they won their 8th game in a row yesterday against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and it was wild at the end. Believe me, check this out.
Here's a fake spike. Brown, touchdown, Pittsburgh! Shades of Marino. They're in Dan Bailey's range right now. Elliott for the touchdown. No flags. Cowboys lead. 9 seconds left.
I mean, the touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, and 3 lead changes in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean, that was crazy, including a trick play that you heard there from the Steelers that still wasn't enough to win. Ben Roethlisberger, he acted like he was going to spike the ball to stop the clock, but instead he threw a touchdown pass to Antonio Brown. 42 seconds left. That put the Steelers up by 1, but then they gave up a touchdown run up the middle by Ezekiel Elliott with only 9 seconds left.
Yeah.
Now that's a football game. Wow. You're hearing the morning show with G and Paul at 1590 WPSL. We'll be back.
Good morning once again. It's 6:49, 69 degrees. Time for the final newscast of the morning show. Experts say today's supermoon will be the biggest full moon observers have seen in nearly 70 years. Full moons can come with superstitions, which Cleveland Clinic Dr. Scott B. said are born out of our desire to control things that are generally out of our control. Dr. B said the myths about full moon go back to the days before electricity. He says there are even people today who want to believe there is anecdotal evidence that a full moon has an effect on us. That, he says, is more likely a result of our selective attention, as no reputable studies have been drawn the same conclusion. Well, now that Florida voters have overwhelmingly approved legalized medical marijuana, experts in healthcare and law enforcement speculate with the measure would be a blessing or a curse. Well, the answer largely depends upon who you ask. The state constitution amendment, which takes effect January the 3rd, was passed with more than 71% of the vote. It broadens the access to medical pot beyond the limited therapeutic uses approved by the legislature 2 years ago. It does guarantee the right of patients with certain debilitating illnesses the right to use cannabis, but the amendment, which will take months to implement before the estimated 450,000 people who qualify for the drug will have access to it, will not allow anyone to possess a leafy form of marijuana used for smoking that's permitted in some states. And President-elect Donald Trump picked for White House Chief of Staff as a graduate of the University of Miami Law School. Reese Priebus is from Wisconsin but graduated from the University of Miami in 1989. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi is an early Trump backer, could be in line for a top job of the Trump administration. Bondi has been named to the executive committee of the transition team putting together the administration. The Fort Pierce City Commission on Monday unanimously approved a building plan to rezone requests for a precast concrete manufacturing company that wants to create 150 new jobs here. Precast Specialties of Pompano Beach would build a 76,000 square foot building on 75 acres of former Citrus Grove at 3798 Selvets Road west of Fort Pierce Central High School. All jobs would be full-time. Average pay would be around $34,000 a year, and city officials said construction is expected to begin the first quarter of 2017 and last up to 120 days, said company president Dean Locke. And a family was displaced Saturday after a fire broke out in their Port St. Lucie home, according to Mark Cristaldi, the captain of the St. Lucie County Fire District. Fire crews received an emergency call around 6:30 about a fire in a single-story family home in the 500 block of Southwest Banks Terrace. The family was in the process of moving into the home Saturday, but were not home when the fire broke out. The fire was extinguished in less than 10 minutes, but caused extensive damage to the home and displaced the family, Cristaldi said. No injuries are reported, and the family declined help from the Red Cross to find a place to stay. And St. Lucie County wants to redevelop the 20-acre Harbor Point Park in the northern section of the Fort Pierce into a mega yacht refurbishing center or other commercial marine use to capitalize on the shortage of such facilities in South Florida. Officials said Thursday that the Fort Pierce Commission and St. Lucie County Commission, you can overcome a lack of size by the parcel by using some of the advantages, mainly the congestion you see in South Florida. You don't see that here, said J. Stanley Pine, that is, the county's senior economic development advisor. And here's Deborah Rodriguez with our Daily Dish. And those are the stories making news this hour. Checking your traffic right now. All clear out there in our broadcast area. However, there is a controlled prescribed burn going down right now. That would be near State Road 91 southbound, mile marker 163.
Well, today we start our about a month-long Christmas Kids charity. And, of course, we kick it off today, as we always do, at the Lawnwood Regional from 11 to 11:30. We're going to have the band from St. A's, St. Anastasia's band, to kick things off for us. So make sure you're listening around 11 o'clock this morning for our very first show, Christmas Kids show of 2016. So make sure you're around for that. Back in the day, Paul.
Okay, G. Well, 165 years ago, way back in 1851, a little book Herman Melville wrote called Moby Dick was published in the U.S. 30 years ago, in 1986, Gene Hackman's classic basketball film Hoosier was released. A great movie. Yeah, wonderful flick. 26 years ago, in 1990, The Who's Pete Townsend confessed to his bisexuality to Newsweek magazine. Bisexual Pete Townsend said, "Hey, I know how it feels to be a woman because I am one.
Say what?
I won't be classified as just a man." That's what he said.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay.
23 years ago, your Miami Dolphins coach Don Shula picked up his 325th win as an NFL record. Still stands.
And I'm writing that new Miami Dolphin fight song even as we speak.
Wonderful. 23 years ago, Puerto Rico voted against becoming a U.S. state. I wonder why they hate us so much, G. Anyway, 23 years ago, in 1993, Shizawa T. Urata discovered asteroid number 7136, while M. Hirasawa and S. Suzuki discovered asteroid 6416, just in case you're wondering who discovered asteroid 6416. How about some go-out music, G, with our good old buddy Leon Russell.
I'm up on a tight wire. One side's ice and one is fire. It's a circus game with you and me.
What a voice.
I'm up on a tight rope.
Nobody sounds like him.
One side's hate and one is
Except Cliff.
But the top hat on.
That's it for us, Paul.
Have a good day, G.
See
WPSL Port St. Lucie. Your CBS News is
and
next.
why